Alright guys, so next we are going to start by pretty much removing the old rotor from the hub assembly. And to do that, we have six 14mm bolts right over here, and we're going to take those off. I already sprayed them down with WD-40 to make the job a little bit easier. Alright, now that we got all the bolts broken, we can just use a regular socket and just take them off. We got all 6 bolts off. And now we could disconnect the hub flange from the rotor. These are probably rusted on as well, so I'm going to spray some WD-40 and knock it loose. Alright. And there we go. We got them disconnected. Alright. I'm just gonna clean this off real quick. Babe, you wanna help? No? Okay. Alright. Second thing on the list of priorities is we can see how right over here we have a broken wheel stud. We're gonna need to take this off. And so the way to do this is we're gonna need to knock this down. So I'm gonna try with a hammer and screwdriver, and basically this is like pressed fit in there. So I'm gonna use some WD-40 and some hammer knocks, and hopefully this comes out. And then I'll show you guys how to install a new one on here, because if you have one missing, it's generally unsafe, because you're always gonna have extra load on all the other ones, and the other ones could fail because you only have one that failed. So yeah, let's take this off. There we go. Simple as that. And you can see, yeah, that just completely sheared off. All right, let's grab a new one and get it on. All right, guys, so to do this job, there's a couple of different methods, but for all of them, you're gonna need a brand new wheel stud. For this particular car, I got this one off of Rock Auto. I went ahead and purchased a $20 wheel stud installer. Basically, the idea is you place this against the stud, and then you tighten a nut at the other end of it. And as you tighten the nut, this thrust bearing will push that wheel stud into place. You can also do this with like using basically a couple of washers to simulate the bearing, and using some grease in between them and tightening against that. But I'm not going to use that method. I'm just going to use this because I have a feeling I probably need to use this for other cars as well. So here we go. I have the stud in position. Basically, we're just going to hold it up against here, and then we have the thrust bearing installer tool, and then we're going to tighten this nut against it, and we'll see if this gets pushed in. It should. I am going to actually have to show you guys the other method of putting this on, because here's the issue. When this is in and I try to drop in the bearing, it ends up being crooked. And the reason is because the bearing is actually too wide to actually go over the hole. So if we can see, if we try to put it in like a different one, it won't go in straight. So I'm gonna have to run to Ace Hardware real quick, grab a couple of washers, and I'll show you guys the other method. Here's another method of doing this. Basically, if you have like an adjustable wrench, you can use this as the washer, tighten up against here. I'm also gonna grease it, and this will pretty much drive it in. So let's give this a go and let's see what happens. All right, it actually is going in. I'll show you guys that. So you can see we're almost there. I'm gonna probably use my breaker bar to get a bit more leverage on it, and gonna actually take this off and apply more grease and go back in. Okay, there we go. All right. And that is how you drive a new wheel stud into a first gen 4Runner hub for basically for the price of the tools you already have. That's sitting nice and flush. There we go. So yeah, no fancy wheel bearing, again because it didn't fit between this gap. I didn't have to go out and get washers. So I'm gonna spray the new rotor with some brake clean just to get that oil and stuff off of it. Millimeter, and I'm gonna go ahead and start tightening these. Okay, and so now we're gonna get our torque wrench, and we are gonna torque these bolts to 47 foot-pounds or 64 Newton meters. Should. Okay. Again, torque them in a crisscross pattern. That's one. And that's 6. All right, so we got our rotor torqued down, and let's go ahead and go back to the axle. So back at the axle, before we install our rotor that we just put on, we do need to make sure that the pistons are pushed back in. So I went ahead and removed a little bit of brake fluid and basically just have that open so it doesn't overflow. And what we're doing is I'm using a C-clamp. There's better ways to do this, and this is too big of a clamp anyway, but it works. I'm using the old brake pad, putting it on there and just pretty much giving this. I've already done this one, so, and that will just push the pistons back in. This will make it easier to put on the rotor back on, and this will also make it easier to install the, well, you have to do this to install the new brake pads. So yeah, I'm gonna do this side, and I'm gonna do this side, which is ultimately more annoying because I don't have much clearance, but yeah. Okay, I went ahead and re-greased the shaft. All right, we are now ready to install the new rotor. So let's go ahead. Move this out of the way. All right. Nice. Okay guys, now that we got the new rotor on, we're going to go ahead and insert the bearing. So the bearing goes in pretty much with a smaller diameter size inside. So that'll just go in. That'll sit right there. And we're going to go ahead and put the lock washer in there. After that, we're going to go ahead and put in the pretty much like a locking washer. Put in the final locking nut. So now we're going to be putting on the hub body back on, except before we do that, we want to make sure we place our new gasket. So go ahead and just line it up. Alright, now that we got our new gasket in place, let's go ahead and get our hub body. I'm going to go ahead and install it. We just want to make sure that these pins are aligned with these right over here. There we go. Alright, we're going to go ahead and attach these cone washers in there. So you'll do a cone washer and then a regular washer on top of it. And then after the washer is the 12mm nut. After you have all 6 installed and tightened, we're going to go ahead and torque them down to 23 foot-pounds. After that, go ahead and get your other 12mm center bolt with the 2 washers inside of it, and go ahead and install that. And we're going to torque that down to 13 foot-pounds, but first, just make sure you lock the drive shaft. There we go. And that's good. Okay, so now we're going to go install our manual locking hub cover. First, we're going to need to install a new gasket. So just line up one of the pins. There we go. Just slide it in there. Great. So now that we got the gasket on, we're going to go ahead and install this in there. The way you want to line this up is you want to find this pin right over here. That's the pin for your spring. And this pin will align with one of the bigger notches on here. So you can see there's a double slit and a single. So align one of the pins with a single while it's in the free position. Go ahead and do that. And we'll see you just slide right in there. Go ahead and get your 6 10mm bolts and thread them in. It's not as smooth as I would like it. There's a bit of resistance on the way back, but I think it'll be fine. Now after getting them tightened down, get your torque wrench and tighten them to 7 foot-pounds. Oh my God. This is what happens when you over torque the bolts. Definitely should not have used a torque wrench on those. It only specified 7 foot-pounds and now it's way too over torqued, and the bolt just sheared off. So now you gotta take off the entire hub body probably again and tap out that bolt and replace it. So that'll be another part. That'll be another probably video, or I might include it in this one, we'll see. But yeah, don't over torque these. So all right. Okay, so we just fucked up and broke this bolt because we over torqued it. So I was gonna drill it out and get an extractor bit, but I noticed that there's a little lip sticking out. Let me show you. Oh wait, where is it? Okay, there's like a little tiny lip sticking out, and I took tiny little screwdriver. I wasn't even using a hammer. I was just using the back of this wrench, and I pretty much just like tapped it out. I'll show you. Like, it's loose now in there, and I'll show you. Grabbed a hold of the little lip, and I broke against the bolt, and you can see it's turning now. I can almost grab it with my hands and just turn it. That's gonna save me a lot of pain, a lot of trouble, a lot of headaches, and I know we're not always this lucky, but I'll take it. Okay, there we go. Wow, okay, I gotta go inside. Now it's raining. Whoa, that came out of nowhere. Oh. Okay. Uh-huh. Gonna dry off that book real quick. Oh, I'm zoomed in. Can't really tell. Let me make sure my dog is inside. It's raining, baby. Yes. I can see the sun over there beyond that house. What a moment, you know? Just when you thought, oh, now you got like a whole nother mistake to go through, gets solved just like that. And I don't know, you got a really nice rain, cool things down a bit. I just thought, I just think it's always good to show moments like that, because we're so used to perfect edited videos that we often don't get to see the reality of how it is, especially like working on a car in a situation like this. So yeah, just wanted to share that a little bit. I know it takes up a bit of time in the video, but I think it's worth it to see. All right, we'll get back into it. Okay, so just updating. I got the locking hub put back. Of course, missing that screw, I'm gonna have to get one. But for now, I just have it on there. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and install the brake pads and the caliper back on, and then we're gonna do the shock. And then once we do the shock, we're actually gonna go and do the tie rods on both sides. So that's what's coming next. Okay, so now that we're at the next step, we are gonna be installing our new shock. This is the Bilstein 4600, and I've already went ahead and put on like the initial washers and just greased them. Depending on your shock, the one you go with, you might have like a different orientation or something. But basically, we're gonna go ahead and slide this in. We're gonna go from the bottom, just bring it all the way up. Okay. Once you get to this point, you're gonna want to get your bolt. You're gonna want to get your bolt with the crush washer. It's not really a crush washer. You just want to place that in there. Apply a small amount of grease, not on the threads, just on here, just to keep it from seizing up. And then you basically want to get this aligned together now, and that's usually the tricky part. You can use a screwdriver to lift, but you sort of need another screwdriver to push. There we go. Just kind of wiggle it in, and I can get your nut. Start tightening it. Get your 22 millimeter, fold the bolt in from the other side. Okay, once that's good, you can go ahead and tighten this down. Once that's nice and tight, go ahead and get your torque wrench and torque this down to 101 foot-pounds. All right. Okay, and now to install the top nut, go ahead and put on your washers and the bushing, and then the top washer cap. Okay, and now what you want to do is you want to get your 17 millimeter nut. In this case, go ahead and get it started. And now for these Bilsteins, you actually need a size 5 hex. So go ahead and stick that in. Once you have it like this, you can use a 17 millimeter wrench to tighten the nut. This process does take a little bit of time, so just be patient with it. Okay, and that's about as tight as I'm gonna go. And that gets our shock absorber installed. Get this this out of the way, don't need it anymore. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get the brake hardware. We're actually gonna attach the caliper and then we'll put in the brake hardware. So I'll show you guys that. Okay, so now we're gonna be installing the caliper back on. This is just an overhead view. Using new hardware. I find this job is a lot better if you're using new hardware for the calipers, because the old ones can be like seized up and they might have anti-seize on them from earlier and all that. So new hardware. I'm gonna put a small, very tiny amount of blue thread locker, and then we'll get it tightened up. And go ahead and start tightening. And now that they're both tightened up, we're getting our torque wrench and torquing them down to 90 foot-pounds. There's one. There's two. All right. Okay, so now that we got the caliper on, we're gonna go ahead and install our new brake pads. These came as part of the same kit that I bought. That comes with the rotor and the pads and the new hardware. I'm just going to use a small screwdriver to kind of push these bushings out of the way, and then try to wiggle that in there. Okay. Should be pretty much sitting on here. Go ahead and get our next one on. I'm gonna get ahead and install the hardware. Okay, that's one. Let's go ahead and install the lower hardware. Okay, and this one you actually need to install while you're doing this. Okay. Get it through both. Get that in here. Get that in there. When you have both of those on, you're going to get this last little clip. Goes the other way. Nice. Basically, these just need to go in actually from here, and that makes a lot more sense. So once you have these on the right way, we'll go ahead and get this spring. Not really a spring, it's just a bracket holder. Go ahead and get them into both pins. And once they're into both pins, they go inside of this hole. Nice. Alright. And now we have our brake installed. So this is pretty much done. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna work on the tie rods. I'm gonna do one side first, and again I'll show you how to do this side. get you guys a better look. If you can see over here, I'm gonna have to take off this just to get a better view on here. I'm also gonna clean this up, wire wheel it, paint it, and then try to address that tie rod. So I'll do that other side first, because that side is gonna be probably, it's better to do. So I'm just gonna do that one, and then we'll do this one. Okay? I'll catch you guys then.